Hey kids, it's Old Man Shouting at Clouds, and now with others too. Chatting about the CFL is what they're going to do. Some have no contacts and others have no clues. Everyone will tell us all their quirky football views. Hear what Old Man and others know. It's the CFL Outsiders show.
Hey GT, what are we going to do this week?
Same thing we do every week, old man. Take over the CFL.
Hey kids, welcome back to another week of the CFL Outsiders. I remain, as always, your 100% unbiased, completely impartial, and not $1 million richer co-host, Old Man Shouting at Clouds. Joining me this week, well, there's an old football adage that nothing heals you up quicker than a backup performing well. And surprisingly enough, MJ, the original, is back with us tonight. Hey, MJ.
I had to check the CFL Outsiders depth chart to make sure I was actually playing tonight.
All right. And it is a rough start for us here because GT was a game time decision and unfortunately couldn't quite go tonight. So, MJ2 is back with us for a second week.
Hey, thanks for having me back.
You're welcome. Thank you for joining in on short notice. We've got a lot to talk about this week. I'll get through the sort of housekeeping stuff. First of all, I try to update people on my fantasy list or fantasy results. If you're interested in what I'm doing, I drop that Thursdays about early afternoon once I've seen the depth charts. This week I scored 128.9 and won fairly handily against Joe of the Rouge, White, and Blue podcast. So I'm at 3-2.
All right.
Could be worse. We'll see how the season goes. Any week can be a sudden fail. That's about all that I've got. But MJ, you had some news for us.
Yeah, it looks like after a bunch of drama, Shawn Lemmon has been officially reinstated by the CFL. He still has to serve his 2-game suspension, but other than that, he's allowed back.
Has he been? That's newer news than I heard. I heard he was allowed to apply. I didn't realize
maybe he is just allowed to apply, but I thought that was just like a rubber stamp.
It's possible. I'm not sure. I mean, Personally, I think it should be because they say it's about integrity of the game and you can't gamble on it, but it was a $10 bet on his own team. And I know I'm going my usual woke self here, but I figure if that's going to get you something suspended for long term, then I don't know why harassing a fellow employee for a year only got someone 9-week games. So by comparison, I've got no problem with them bringing Shawn back into the league.
Agreed.
Agreed.
All right. Other little bits of news. The CFL has now officially released their negotiation lists. They've in the past given us 10 players off them. Now they've given them the whole things. I'm not going to bore you with sitting here and reading through them because there's like 2 names that you'll recognize maybe. It's interesting. And in fact, I found someone on Blue Sky that started a transaction list tracker. So they're going to let me know whenever there's a change to anyone's transaction list, which is kind of nice. I never knew I needed it, but I'll have that down. But frankly, I don't see this making a big difference. Very, very few players that are of any note do we ever see there. And it'll be something else in the background. Or am I missing something?
No, you know what? I saw we were going to talk about it and I didn't even look it up. I just do not care.
Yeah, I saw a news article that said they were doing this, and I thought, oh, okay, cool. And some people who love those depth charts, whatever, they're probably happy, but for me, cool.
Yeah, if you're one of the people that's off in the weeds about American college football, and you follow all 3 divisions and all that, then I'm sure there's a lot there you'll get excited about. But that's not me or most of the CFL fans, I don't think. So
leave it to them.
Nice you're doing it. Nice the transparency is there. But I don't see it making a big change for us. What else? Oh, we had some big news for MJ2 to tell us about.
Yeah. for the first time, well, and I'm going to come back to that, there's been a touchdown to win.
Yay!
How many times do you see those people's names on the screen and you think, who are these people? And you wish the best for them. And you know it'll never happen. It happened. Apparently, though, there was also a winner in 1999. Gizmo Williams and Donnie Ashley both ran back in 1999 to do it for Gail Sinclair. So, Roy Lister, congratulations wherever you are. And I know, Megan, you had a note quickly about Wooden and getting in touch with Roy, the winner.
He made a video congratulating him and then being like, hey, if you want to share some of your winnings, that'd be cool with me. Yeah.
But that's exciting for the players too, to know that you've done something to win that people that money.
Enoch Mwamba was like, I was trying to stalk Roy on social media and he doesn't have social media, so we can't even find him.
Yeah.
If this was me, I would have plastered it everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, I'm wondering if he's really a big CFL fan and if he even knew until somebody called. I mean, how random would that be?
Just shops at Save On Foods and happened to randomly pick the right amount of products.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's incredible. I was saying, well, first of all, I saw the post-game stuff with Wooden, and you could tell he was pumped that had happened on his kickoff return. You know, that'll stay with him for history now. And I was saying, if the CFL and Save On are smart about this, they'll pump this up all summer. You know, I don't know when he gets his money. Maybe he gets it now, but they'll talk about it and really keep it forward all summer. And then on Labor Day, when these two teams meet again, fly him out to the game and have Grant and Wooden give him a giant-sized check at halftime
I would
for the
love
symbolic
that.
Passover.
I love that.
Yeah, that would get them coverage all over the world. So I'm hoping so.
CFL, a little bit of marketing.
Yeah, exactly. Take the easy stuff. Take the easy wins.
It's like a slam dunk.
Send Roy to Hamilton. Come on.
Let's see. Oh, on slightly less good news, also, unfortunately, the Ottawa Redblacks, besides losing the game this weekend, lost Devontae Dedmon, their returner. And there's no word on it yet, but having seen it, I think it's a season ender. They had to bring out the cart and take him off, and it looked like an ankle probably got rolled over, and I don't think it's a strain or anything. It's either a break or a tear in the knee somewhere, my guess, but I'm no doctor, but that's what I saw. So, yeah. So Khalil Pimpleton will be a very tired young man for the next while, I'm thinking, because they were using him for kickoff and full offense. Righty. Anything else on that? Or okay, so MJ, you were going to talk about what the family's going on about. Family football talk for the week.
Yeah, it's so nice my sister's here for family football talk.
I'll just step back.
Quickly, you should tell the story about our aunt.
Oh, one of our favorite aunts, she was so excited to join Facebook because she was like, good, I'll be able to catch up with the girls and see more about their lives because I live far away. And she called my dad one day and complained because all we did was talk about football.
There's a reason you're here.
Maybe she learned some thing about football.
Hopefully.
You'll wear her down.
Just like,
we are family.
So I just wanted to talk about Joanne Pollock becoming the chair of Football Canada. Big news. This is really exciting. For those who don't know, she was the Ottawa GM of the Rough Riders from 1989 to 1991, which when you think about the 80s and the early 90s, the fact that she was a GM is just incredible. The CFL finally has female officials. I looked at the first game was in 2019 and it was just for one game. And now they have three, they have two line judges, Sharon Airy and Georgina Paul, and Emily Clark is a side judge. And the first time I saw one of these women on the chain gang, I couldn't believe my eyes. I was so excited. Like, I'll tell a little story from when I was in high school in the late 90s. There was the CFL came to career day to my high school to show people that they how to become a referee in the CFL. And I tried to sign up for it, and they wouldn't let me go attend it because I was a girl. Would not let me attend. That was like 1998. We didn't have a female official till 2019. There's a lot of women who watch football. There's lots of women who love football. I looked it up. The NFL, 46% of their fan base is female. Like, we're watching. So I honestly, good job for Joanne. I'm so excited to see what she does for Football Canada. We have an amazing women's flag football team on the national level. And everything we learned about football, we learned from our mom.
It's true. On my baby book, baby's first CFL book, or baby's first CFL game.
Yeah, it's a great step to see, and I agree with you. We need to see a lot more of this. We're starting to see some female coaches even, which is not a bad thing at all. There's no reason that a woman can't perform at the roles of like the ref and coaching and all the rest of that. The only reason that it's difficult to get them on the field is because of the physical difference in size and whatnot. That's just a natural. So you can't, once you get past 14, 15 years of age, you can't really do co-ed football. But there's no reason that women can't be involved in all the rest of this stuff.
And
I think it's great.
And Sharon Airy, I think she moved over to U Sports. I'm not sure if she's still in the CFL this year, but I know that she was one of the first women to ever be the head referee in a U Sport game.
I want to see that at a CFL game.
Yes.
Get the right people, make sure you're not doing it just as a token, get someone like that that's proven they can do it. And no reason not to, where we're at in the world. I like to believe at least we're not sliding backwards as fast as our southern neighbors are, and we should be able to keep the momentum going on this kind of equality and whatnot. Like I said, I look forward to the day when it's just not a story.
Yes.
There is come a time when being a woman head coach or official or GM will be the same place that being a black head coach or official or GM was 30 years ago. It was a news story when it happened, and we'll go through that. But I could see easily we could end up 15 years from now with a couple of female head coaches and just them integrated into the system. I certainly hope so.
I hope they're letting women go to the career day at high school now.
Hopefully the schools have evolved some, but I wouldn't promise that. It depends probably who's running the whole thing. But yeah, I've seen way too much of that in my time too. Just people being ruled out because they weren't a male, when it comes right down to it. When I coached the junior varsity team here, we had two young women that wanted to come out and try out for the team, and I said yes, and school wasn't exactly thrilled, but we went through it, and they unfortunately didn't perform quite as well as their male counterparts, but I gave them full credit for being out there and for trying to do it. And it was just, that was those two particular individuals. Like I said, at 14, 15, there are still young women that can compete with the men in that same age group. Anyway, that's me pontificating. That was excellent news. I'd love to see that. Yeah. Should we maybe go on to the games then?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's talk about this. The first one, which I was fairly adamant that Winnipeg was going to win, and I got overruled. So the CFL Outsiders pick'em got this game right. Winnipeg 16 at Calgary 37. Anybody have any thoughts to jump in on?
Stampede Bowl. I've got the hat in the background to celebrate. I didn't put it there. But that's so exciting for Dickinson and the Stamps and the whole city to win the Stampede Bowl during Stampede Week. That was great.
Yes. So what you're telling us is the Stampede Bowl hat is photobombing you.
Yes.
It was great for them and a decisive win. You know, it's their defense really carried the day for them with those two pick sixes. It took Winnipeg's, well, it didn't take them out of their running game. I was really surprised when I looked because I'd picked Brady Oliveira on my fantasy team and I thought, oh great, they're behind, he won't get anything. He had 112 yards rushing and 51 through the air. So he got a lot of carries and a lot of yardage, but it was too slow. They're not built to come back from being behind like they were.
No.
Oh.
And Mills had a good game too for Calgary. So if you're
Yes.
comparing running games, not quite similar yardage, but close, like 18 carries. That's a lot.
Yes, and the win. So, you know, it's even
Well,
better.
yes.
No, they were running the ball well. I thought their offense was playing fairly well, and they happened to get a game where they clicked. And the Bombers, I said last week, Zach had the previous week gone off for so many huge points and touchdowns and everything. And I said he has a game or two like that once a year. And he does. And he also has one like this once or twice a year. And I don't know what it was. He did not look at ease, didn't look like he was reading what the defenses were doing to him. Just making, frankly, rookie-type mistakes.
I have a note saying that at one point, the closest receiver available was Chris Strebler on the sideline.
There was not a whole lot there. I wanted to mention a Damian Webb who came over from Ottawa to them this last year. And I was saying last year he was the second best halfback in the league. And I'm still impressed. They've moved him to safety now. He's not playing halfback. But the way he robbed that one curl and took it in for the 6 point, the pick six, that was a thing of timing and beauty. And I also got a kick out of it because I noticed right at the end when he was about 2 or 3 yards from the end zone, it looked like Collaros was going to catch him. But I've seen other quarterbacks do this, chasing down an interception. Oh, they just don't quite get there. Somehow they don't manage to make the hit. Oh, well.
Somehow. Oh, well.
Someone's probably yelling in his ear, "Don't you dare jump. Don't jump for it."
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
I'm surprised that, am I surprised that the Bombers didn't put Strebler in when it was just a complete blowout? Like, I had flashbacks to Grey Cup when Zach's hand needed stitches and they just left him in there. And Strebler played the game one and he looked good.
Yes, he did.
So I don't.
But if you're not giving him reps in practice, maybe that's a decision O'Shea makes.
And O'Shea is so loyal to his players. He makes some bad decisions like that.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I've seen him make decisions that he admits afterwards he shouldn't have done, and he knew it at the time, but he couldn't help himself. There was one last year where Nick Dembski caught a ball low off the turf, ended up getting tackled for a loss of 2 yards, and he was insisting he'd caught it, so O'Shea challenged it. And the replay showed he caught it, and instead of getting the ball back on the original line of scrimmage, it was now 2nd and 12. He said, I knew that would happen, but it didn't matter. We needed to prove that was a catch.
That's kind of like Dave Dickinson having his temper tantrum meltdown.
Oh, yeah, that too, during a win.
Yeah.
You're up by how many scores? You know you can't challenge it.
Well, we were listening to the game, the last end of it in the car, I think. And I was like, what is going on? There was such a long pause in play. And it's like, it's Dave Dickinson still. Okay.
Wanting to challenge an illegal contact, which we've known for 5 years isn't challengeable. And
Yeah.
what annoyed me is the officials did tell him you can't challenge that and took his challenge away, so it cost him. But that's supposed to be a delay of game. He should have also lost 10 yards on that.
I agree.
I feel
But
like
it
there's
was one
some
of those
petty challenge flag throwing this year.
Him, I don't understand there, because a lot of them are desperation stuff, and he had no desperation. They, like you said, they were cruising with that, but I don't know.
I was just going to say, have you seen a picture of the big belt buckle
That's the
that
Oh,
Vernon
I
Adams
heard
won?
there was a buckle for MVP, but I haven't seen it.
It looks so great. It's got Stampede Ball on it. They took a picture of VA with full cowboy gear. with his cowboy boots have the number 3 on the side of the heel.
Of course they do.
And he's got his big belt buckle on. PR dream come true.
Oh, yeah. Well, and VA deserves it. He is such a good part of this league.
Honestly, I'm so happy.
I found the whole Stampede Bowl thing a rather bit of nonsense for, a random trophy in the middle of the year. They're trying to get fans back, so I understand that. But to me, it was kind of a chuckle. And then I saw what they were giving away as the trophy, and that looked like that was put together by somebody 5 or 6 years old. I want a real bright, shiny trophy.
No,
and then when they carried it in, yes, but then when they carried it in, and the guy got the guy bringing it in, and he's in like a Stampeder outfit, but white gloves on. The white glove, come on now.
I love it.
Yes.
I mean, do you touch the trophy? I don't know.
Well, I know the Grey Cup, you're not supposed to touch it if you haven't won it. It's supposed to be bad luck to touch it if you haven't won it. But that trophy.
It is Stampede though. Stampede is gaudy. It's over the top. It's like a little bit ridiculous. And I just have a note, like it's just I was kind of grouchy about the whole Stampede Bowl thing, and then I kind of really got into it, like Moamba, like racing the cow.
Yes.
And I was like, and they showed it 1,000, but I was like, it's fun to have fun. It's like,
yes, it is.
It's just, and the team bought into it wholehearted. The CFL, like the commissioner was there, like everyone bought into it. It was Brett Michaels was there. It was fun.
Yes, it was. And for anyone who didn't actually see it, the cow Enoch raced against was a man in a cow outfit. He wasn't actually racing the world's fastest cow. Now
that I would also like to see.
For a second, when I thought it was when they were talking about it, because they're like, he's gonna race a cow, and I was like, is he?
Yeah, no, and they were bugging him through the weekend. So apparently that wasn't the world's fastest cow. That wasn't the guy that normally wears the cow outfit, and it wasn't even his backup. It was the backup to the backup that Enoch beat.
It's one of my favorite things.
With a 15-yard head start.
Yes, it's one of my favorite things about going to a Stamps game is watching that cow run. Well, I mean, whatever backbencher it is, still fun.
That was a great game to kick off the weekend for anybody but a Bomber fan. I'm sure they weren't happy with it, but that was just, it got a little boring in the second half when it was obvious they weren't coming back, but it was a great way to just kick off what was a fun weekend.
Yeah, and then they had the Stampede Bowl. They had the bowl at the parade the next day.
Oh, did they? I did not know that. I didn't even know there was a parade. Oh, the Stampede Parade. That's good. Yeah.
Yes, they were in the Stampede Parade.
Well, that makes
Shania
sense.
Twain.
We always say that the CFL doesn't market enough. It's great to see that.
Yeah, it's awesome.
That one, once we got through that and we were still reasonably sane, then we got to the next night, which had to be the game of the year for now. Yes, I can see. I'll let you two tell us what the score was.
A lot of points to not as many.
Yeah. That's about the best way to sum it up.
Yeah, over 50 points. Well done, Tycat.
Yep, 51-38. And they look good doing
38
it.
38 is not a bad, like if you score 38 points normally, you're going to win that game.
Yeah, no, I agree. 38 points is it was just one of those games though that that they had the touchdown to win. And actually I called that when I didn't say it was going to happen, but I said to the folks I was watching with, when Grant got his first touchdown on the kickoff, I said, that's one. If there's ever a game where there's a chance for somebody to win it, it's this game, because we're early. I think we were early in the second half then, but it was obvious there was going to be a lot more scoring. And I kind of thought Grant would get himself another one, but wouldn't surprise me with it. And just, again, great football on both of them. No mistakes, nothing sloppy, just well-played blocking and great returning.
When we were talking the preseason about what we were looking for in the CFL, we were talking about the quarterbacks and how we wanted high scoring. I just wanted, can't wait for balls to be aired out all year. This is the game I was waiting for.
Yes. Yeah, he was my fantasy quarterback, and Kenny was who I teamed him up with. Kenny and Bo were very, very good to me this weekend.
Yeah, I had a set, was it 19 of 24? Well done, Bo Levi.
And
That's a good stat.
yeah, Kenny and Bo, what a combo if they're clicking.
I also noticed after the first touchdown, they had a shot of the bench, and they mentioned that, Bo just goes back and sits on the bench and looks at his pad. But they were saying, oh, but you notice Kenny's right there near him in case, just reminding him that I'm close by. And I looked at it and thought, wait a minute, that's not Kenny. That's the entire receiving group is all within about 3 yards of Bo on the bench. Yeah. Not talking to him, but just remember I'm here. I'm open. I will be open.
Here's my number.
So, yeah, you could tell they were ready to have a big game, too.
Yeah. This was the TikTok Live game. And on the TikTok Live, they had showed Bo went over to Luke Wilson on the sideline and asked him if this was more exciting for him.
Yep. They mentioned that in the broadcast, too. Yeah.
Yeah. So TikTok went over and asked Luke what he said to him.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess so.
It's like a good rivalry already.
Yes. And Luke was all set up with a full screen, it wasn't a 50-inch, but probably a 40-inch screen on a bench down there at field level. They had him being able to watch the whole game right there. So I guess, yeah, I don't know. I'm not happy about some of the stuff he says about the CFL, but he's entertaining. I'll give him that for the Friday night games.
He's looking to make a name for himself.
I'm here for Bo to chirp him.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And hey, another thing from the game, Bo's fastest quarterback to win 100 games.
Yep.
143
and 40,000.
games.
Did he get this 40,000 yard
He
passing?
got his 40,000 yards. Yeah, got that in as well. So he's, I think, number 9 or 10 on the all-time passing list now. And Lancaster was 149 games. So he was 6 games quicker to 100 than Lancaster was.
As someone who lives in Calgary and around Calgary fans, everyone had written him off and thought that the Ticats were out of touch for bringing him in. But I thought these last couple of games proves why they brought him in.
His shoulder was toast in Calgary, and I think they figured it'd never come back. And then probably the best thing that happened to him was that first year in Hamilton getting hurt as much as he did, because it gave him a lot of time for the shoulder to finally come back with no throwing on it. And yeah, the last 2 years, he's looked like vintage Bo. Yeah. And I've been enjoying him more because vintage Bo, I really couldn't stand because he was so cocky and just so in your face about everything. Whereas this Bo has gone through some adversity and is a little more appreciative and a little more humble. They had the interview at the end of the game where they talked to both him and Kenny. And I really enjoyed that because he wasn't thumping his chest about, look how great we are. He was talking about how good it is to be on a team like this.
And you think about your coach and you think about the culture that you build. And I think that says a lot to that.
I will agree with that. I'm not generally a fan, or haven't been a fan of Milanovic in the past, but he's starting to grow on me, the way that he's handling the stuff now. Just a couple other things I was going to mention. Plays that don't usually happen. There was a play that I absolutely loved, and I think it was in the third quarter, but it was just basically a bell run up the middle. And he got about 6-7 yards up the middle, and the linebacker stepped into him and literally knocked him backwards in the air about 4 or 5 yards. At which point, Leon Dobson from the Ticats O-line grabbed him out of the air and just ran forward with him until they got tackled and took it back to close to a first down again. So, whatever works.
This is also, was it Kenny that was running backwards into the end zone? And I was like, that's only fun when it's on my team.
Yes, it is. It reminded me a little bit of Willie J when he was still with the Riders, that interception that he got in the Banjo Bowl that I think it took him 10 minutes to run the length of the field. Once he saw no one was chasing him, he just kind of idled back and serpentined back and forth the whole distance.
It's only fun when it's your team.
Yes. Yeah. Awful tough to take when it's not.
Especially if you're an Argo fan.
That's the thing, is to be an Argo fan, you had to feel somewhat good about the game the way that you scored so many points. But I think I heard 3 or 4 different announcers or people talk about the Argos basically being the mouse in the wheel, running as fast as they could and just not gaining any ground at all.
Well, when Bo's throwing 40 yards to Kenny, it's hard to counteract that. your defense is right on the field again, right?
Exactly. Kenny's was apparently his best game of his career with the yardage and touchdowns he got.
Yeah, over 200 yards.
I was also disappointed, and I thought UMJ would probably be more disappointed to see that O'Leary Orange got a touchdown that got called back on penalty.
I know.
Unfortunate. It was a good throw. Everything was there. I think it was a holding call or something. But
Always
They
a
made up
holding
for it.
call. Yep, what? There we go.
Sure, yeah. Yeah. They're getting ahead too fast. Slow them down. I think he threw it to, I think they scored on the next one to someone else, or maybe that was one of the field goals. I don't know. I wanted to mention that I noticed Mark Milton of the Argos stopped it from being 58 to whatever, because there was a play with White in the second half of the game there where he came around the end and there was nobody to stop him, and Milton laid out, and literally it was a shoestring tackle. He slapped White's ankle and heel, and it was enough to knock him down. I love to see hustle plays like that.
Was it last week where the Argos weren't running after players, or was that another team? Or did Dinwiddie say we are finishing tackles?
It could be. I know we talked about BC and Ottawa last week. We're both kind of slow like that. The Argos have generally been going after stuff and playing. As you know, I think that their problem right now is just they don't have the talents on defense they had last year. I think the coaching is getting everything it can out of that team. That's my opinion.
Yeah. It's not necessarily an offense problem right now.
Well, it wasn't in this game because of how things worked out, but other games it's been. And that's it. I don't know if getting Winton and the Chad back is going to be enough for that team.
I was just wondering how much they miss Cameron Dukes. Played 9 games without Chad last year.
And he was won 3 or 4 of them. He at least had them in the hunt. I'm sure they would also love to have Kadeem Carey back, who they released, because they're down running backs there now too. So, yeah, you make those big moves and either they pay off or they don't.
I mean, Argos suck, so
yeah,
it's really nice to see that sometimes.
It had to be said with the 2 Ticats fans here. I figured we wouldn't get through this part without that. Yeah. I will say one other thing I found really interesting was in the pregame interview, they had Chatfield, who's the DN for the Argos that they traded to Ottawa to get. And I think he's had a sack every game so far. So he's playing really well. And he said something that I've never heard an American player say before. He said, as a defensive guy, he likes that extra yard off the ball. I've always heard them say, well, it's harder to engage and the offensive line can react to where you're coming from. And he said, that gives me a yard to figure out where the tackle's going and how I'm going to attack him.
I love that.
And he's figuring something out because he's certainly playing well.
Yeah, well, you can't tush push in CFL.
No, you cannot do that. Although they do allow them to do the stuff down the field where you can all get behind a player and keep pushing him in that
crowd.
I found it's called tandem blocking in the CFL, and it's not as fun.
Yeah. I don't mind it when it's happening like that, where you get a running back that's trying to get like 10 yards, and at 6 yards the whole line gets behind him and you've got 12 people pushing back and forth on each other. I can live with that.
Yeah.
I don't like the tush push though. So and frankly, we don't need it up here. We've got probably at least, well, I'd say maybe 4 that are almost automatic on even like a yard and a half.
I will say Leech Ray is not automatic.
I didn't even write down his yardage because I looked and was unimpressed and I carried on.
Yeah, I forgot. Did he get stopped in that game? He might have. And I mean, you can't say automatic because Tommy Stevens got stopped in the game last week. So these guys get stopped occasionally, but usually
it's an art.
Usually Andre Leach and then Stevens and Streb in Winnipeg, and even this Quincy that the Stampeders have brought on, big guys who specialize in that. They look like all of them can probably get it on almost anything that's within a yard and a half. Whereas there's others that have been good in the past but have been getting stopped this year, like Crum's been stopped and Fajardo got stopped in their game this weekend. And
good job, defenses.
Probably just drives Luke Wilkin crazy anyway, all these quarterback sneaks.
Hey, well, yes, please. More QB sneaks.
I didn't say it earlier, but I was actually thinking, I'm not sure if GT is out this week because of the bad head cold he said he had, or if he's just lost his voice from cheering on Thursday night. Thursday night, the
Oh
Stamp
yeah,
game.
the Stampede Bowl. Yeah, he probably
he would be in his glory through that whole game.
Well, something to cheer about finally.
So, but we're back to the Hamilton game. We're just about done. Anything from either of you two to finish off here?
My mother-in-law turned the TV at dinner to make sure I could watch the game.
You've got a good football family going there. All righty. Okay, so let's jump on then to the Saturday night game. This was the one where we'd taken Montreal, and BC came back with a very strange win at the end. I mean, hopefully, the way we talk about these games, hopefully everybody's seen them or you'll probably get lost. But frankly, to have the ball on a running clock with 3 seconds left and you somehow get the snap and get a 12-yard pass and get it down in time for a field goal, that seems
That's CFL
awfully
magic
iffy to me.
CFL magic.
I gotta believe it's real that they were watching the clock closely enough. I mean, it's still a judgment call because 0.2 of a second is a reaction time, and that's what they said. They didn't say there were 2 seconds left. They said there were 0.2 of a second.
Well, and Montreal wasn't watching the clock
Well,
because they had just left him half a second longer.
Yeah, exactly. You know, that's the whole thing. But while they didn't take him down. He dove and gave himself up, and they gave him. So that's what I'm saying is, you see him hitting the ground and you react to the clock, and that takes more than, I know from my science stuff, how the brain works, that takes more than 0.2 of a second. So it all just seemed iffy. But hey, BC put themselves in a place to come back and win, and it all turned out that way.
And it couldn't have happened to a nicer player. Shawn White is probably one of the nicest athletes in the CFL.
Yes. Apparently his nickname, same as mine, is Old Man.
That feels weird to me because my roommate used to be really good friends with him growing up, and I've never thought of him as Old Man. What does that say about me?
I know he had some gray in his hair while he was in that interview.
No, he's always 21.
He's kicking like he's 21.
Yeah. But there's a video out there that the Lions did with just a bunch of the players walking by, and they asked them their team nicknames as they went by. And you were getting a bunch of them, and I guess with Shawn White, it was just Old Man.
Oh, man. Yeah. He's been kicking for forever.
Yes, he has, and still as accurate as ever. There are some very good kickers in football these days.
Well, all I could think about was like how much people love Lou Pasaglia. And I'm like, oh, White might eclipse some of that.
Ooh, I don't
know. I haven't looked at stats.
If he does, it won't be
from
stats.
Vancouver?
Yeah, I think he is, because I think he came up through the Surrey Rams junior system.
I said our dad has a signed Lou Pasaglia hat, and it would take quite a lot to knock that hat down a level in his BC Lions shrine.
Got to get him a Shawn White one now.
Yeah. The thing with Pasaglia was he was a personality too, and he played until he was 98 or something.
Yeah.
Yes.
Trying to eclipse him is a bit much, but yeah, because White is a fantastic kicker, but he does tend to be a quieter guy, whereas Pasaglia every now and then caused a bit of controversy and stuff. All right, but what else happened in that game? Well, the Owls started out really well. They had 2 long runs from Thomas Erlington, and then basically a wide receiver screen that Tyson took for, what was it, 40-some yards for a touchdown? And I kind of thought at that
Erlington.
point, I thought at that point this game's going to be over, but it didn't keep playing out that way. BC defense figured out what Montreal was doing, kept themselves in it.
Well, and I looked, and Rourke ran 43 yards that game. So what's going on there?
To me, he looked like a competent CFL quarterback, but not the Rourke that everybody's been waiting for. He didn't look like 2022 Rourke for me. There's not taking any away from, not saying like he shouldn't be the QB1 or anything, but he's still got a ways to go, or there's just not enough around him to be able to let him work his magic.
He still looks a little injured. And why is he doing short yardage?
That's
why
a
would
great
you pay
question.
someone that much money and have him doing short yardage?
Especially when your quarterback already knows the team so well. Like those
Is
should be
Bryce
easy decisions.
is Bryce not trusted to do short yardage?
I'm sure the two of you still remember quite well them using Bo on short yardage down near the end zone 2 years ago and what happened there. So,
Oh yeah.
yeah, I don't get it
They were
either.
just asking for him to get re-injured.
Especially with something like an oblique, where
Yeah.
I don't know. I do know that the score could have been probably a lot higher for Montreal, but because the BC DBs were getting beat quite a bit all evening, but they were grabbing on, and I think they took 3 or 4 longer PI calls, and in every one of them, it wasn't a bad PI call. If they hadn't clutched and tackled the player, he would have been gone for either a touchdown or more yards than they were giving up. So it wasn't spectacular defense, but it seemed to work to keep them in the game.
It was 197 yards of penalties for the BC Lions.
And I'd be willing to guess over 100 of that was on those 4 different PI calls.
Their DBs looked awful. Is Benavides still have a job?
How does he still?
I don't know. Hey, you're kind of committed to your players at this point, unless they're really, really bad. But it'll be interesting to see BC at Edmonton this week and see how that all stacks up.
Was it GT that was riding on Benavides last week too, or was that you, old man? I can't remember.
I think it was GT.
Yeah, he had nothing to say except for get out.
We are of similar opinions there. Benavides never has struck me as being a great coach. I know I've banged on the drum on this before, but to hire a new DC and then, because of the coach's cap, take your existing DC and demote him and say, oh, you're not good enough to be our DC, but you can work for this guy.
Yeah.
At some point, again, that filters through to your culture too.
Yeah, they don't seem to. They seem like a talented team that doesn't really have any rah-rah behind them.
It's kind of like when the Ticats got bought by Bob Young, and they were awful for years because they had that awful culture there and it took quite a long time for it to turn over. And honestly, not till the last few years really has it really turned around. So I think BC might be in a similar situation.
I think that, I don't know if they'll keep Pierce after this year. Depends on what kind of season they have. But I feel like they really should, whenever they can practically do it under that coach's cap, is they should be turfing out the rest of the coaching staff, and probably do a makeover on scouts and everything that you can.
Maybe Chris Jones is available.
No, please don't ever say that. Yeah, because he could break them for another decade.
Yeah.
But no, once you get that kind of culture in your locker room, it is so hard to root out.
Well, I think it was your husband, MJ, who messaged me and said BC didn't deserve to win this game.
Neither team deserved to win.
No, that's true too. Neither of them were at their best. But yeah. Now the other thing is, I noticed today that Jason Moss said he figures that Alexander will be back after the bye. They're one of the 3 teams on bye this week. So he says he'll be back for, I guess that'd be, where are we now? We're going into week 6. So he'd be back for week 7. They're saying, I'm not sure about that, because there was one point that they gave a sideline shot after one of the big plays Montreal had made. And it was Davis Alex standing on the sideline. And when the play was there, he jumped up and did not the touchdown, but like that. And when he came down, he grabbed his hamstring.
He posted an Instagram story of him at a Pilates studio this week, so maybe it is starting to improve.
Oh, hopefully, but my experience, I've only ever had a hamstring. I've never torn it completely. I had a bad tear on it from a water skiing accident, because I'm not a great water skier. But my experience with it was, you can almost not notice that you're hurt if you're just walking around. It doesn't pull. Yeah. There's no hurt to it. There's no pain. You can walk fine. As soon as you start to even push off and take like a fast step forward, it just goes away. Yeah. There's nothing there. So Pilates may help, and I hope they get him back, Matt.
Yeah, because McLeod Bethel Thompson is not it.
Nope.
Yeah, I'm baffled by that. He played so much better with Edmonton last year.
Did he?
He did. Not every game. He had some stinker games. And, actually, I kind of thought about that when Hamilton was playing them. Because Hamilton last year, when he was in Edmonton, went up to Edmonton, and I remember this because I was playing fantasy stuff at the time, gave MBT a game where he got, I think, like 3.2 fantasy points. He was under 50 yards passing. He couldn't do anything. And they just had his number. So,
I was probably yelling, put in Ford from the stands.
yeah, well, they probably were. But that might explain a little bit about sort of how Hamilton did so well against him. He looked a bit better against BC, but still not what I would expect.
Well, I wrote down 192 yards. I had to go back and double check it. How do you expect to win a football game if your quarterback's throwing under 200 yards? But I mean, he still had the 2 touchdowns, but still.
We're rushing the ball a lot either.
No.
Yeah, so.
11 carries for Arlington.
Like jumping and like trying to hurdle people. He got injured, had to go on. Caleb Evans had to go on. And I was like, you only have you and Caleb. Like, you can't be just like hurdling people and like.
Yes. Well, give them full marks for effort. I'll say that.
I guess.
But yeah, you might want to be a little bit smarter when you're already the backup quarterback.
I feel like our mom would say, if you have enough energy to have a fight at the end of a game, you didn't leave enough on the field.
That's right.
That makes sense to me too. Yeah. There was that whole ugly thing. I don't know what that was about, but
it's embarrassing.
Yeah.
The worst part was seeing Jason Moss being interviewed, and he's trying to figure out what's going on behind him. And I have never heard a coach swear so much in a post-game interview, because he's clearly not present because his team is in trouble. And so I thought, why would you have that interview, TSN? Anyway.
If the guy was going into an opposing locker room, that's, you got to expect, especially after you've just pulled out a win like that.
He's like, I was just going to go say hi to my friend.
Not the time or place.
You weren't. You were not.
Moron.
If you were, you're tone deaf as hell.
Yeah. And then everyone's blaming the benches being on the same side of the field, but like,
you know better.
You know better, and you know what? Other leagues and teams seem to not have fist fights.
Yeah.
Like in soccer, you gotta walk out the same tunnel.
Yeah. No, you're right. It's an attitude of, do you play to the whistle or the echo of the whistle, as they sometimes say, which is sort of acceptable, or do you go afterwards? Whatever happened in that game, if you think you're making it any better by going and challenging someone in the other team's locker room,
you have to think there's some suspensions coming.
There better be.
Because fines aren't going to cut it.
Yeah, and I don't know how good a player this guy is. He was apparently a second-round NFL choice, but he's not playing there, and we may find BC may decide real quick that the juice isn't worth the squeeze on that one.
How many penalties can you have?
There's every once in a while when these guys comes up, like Marino's another one, who think they're like, it's like Friday Night Lights. And
No. Yeah, like fighting has no place in football. Like there's the one sports where you can guarantee, things might get heated and there might be some shoving, but seeing that was really disappointed. Or I was disappointed.
To me, that's one of the best things about football is not the pro levels, because they should have learned it by then, but your minor levels. It teaches young men and women how to be aggressive and put everything they've got into what they're doing, and then suddenly turn it off when the whistle goes.
Yes.
And learn to get that control. And that's a fantastic part of that sport. So, but some people, you hear about it at the pro levels all over the place. There are some people that just can't seem to get past their own ego, and they have enough talent, it carries them somewhere. So we'll see. I also I was just thinking back to when I said this about Hamilton beating MBT last year. I found it interesting in the Winnipeg game, going way back to the Thursday night, that they were talking about the fact that VA's record against the Bombers is almost spotless. I think he's something like 6-1 or 7-1 against them, so may had a lot to do with it and may look well for them for the rest of the season. I mean, don't forget, he went, was it last year or 23 that he went in there early in the season and beat them something like 50-0 to 12 or so with the Bombers.
Oh, I can't.
Yeah. Was within the last
Where's
2 years.
GT? He would
Did
remember.
happen, yeah.
GT would know this.
Yes, I know. But hey, we've got to do the best we can here. All righty. Why don't we jump on to the last game?
I just want to say quickly, Alouettes had their Canada flag patches this week and their Quebec patches. So they got them on.
Yeah.
They arrived in the
I
mail.
forgot to even look for that,
Yeah.
But I will say, though, along those same lines, I've started noticing some of the stuff that GT mentioned earlier in the season about how TSN's done up their Friday night stuff with more information on it and a board that's easier to read. And I do love it. I just hope they keep growing and make some other changes for the rest of the games through the weekend. One more game to talk about. Game 4, Ottawa 33 at Edmonton 39. Another
Who
boring
saw that
game
score?
Certainly not me. And I got to say, the Edmonton offense right off the bat, Ottawa reacted after about a quarter, but they were moving at will in that first quarter. It was like playing against air.
I was at the Stingers game for the first half. I kept checking my phone, and every time I looked at my phone, the score was ticking up, up, up. I was like, what's happening? Just down the road from me. Yeah.
It was a barn burner, and I think Brown was a little bit rusty from his injury because it took him a while to get going, but it made for a good game. And there was also one, I don't know what it would have done to the final score, but there was a touchdown that Ottawa should have had that they got taken away from him, and it was Pimpleton. He got robbed. Basically, he caught about a 5-yard pass, and it went into one of those scrums 10 yards down the field, and he popped out the other side and burst to the outside and then suddenly went down, and the play was whistled dead. But when you looked at it, he was under control coming out of the scrum. He was not down by contact at all. And when he tripped, he tripped over the heel of one of his receivers.
So wasn't touched.
So he was never touched down by contact. And he did get up and try to keep running, and they whistled it dead. Might not have been another touchdown, but it would have been a bigger play anyway. And what can you do? You got to whistle it dead there, I guess, and they go with what they see. But the replays had it quite clear that he'd made the right move.
Because did both teams get a touchdown punt return?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I had that in my notes, and now I'm questioning it. Why wasn't there $1 million for that?
Because it's only for kickoffs, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's, again, who's going to be the special teams player this week? You've got four return touchdowns to choose. Which was the nicest one?
Yeah, who had the best celebration?
Yeah.
Who won somebody $1 million?
Yeah, okay, yeah, he gets it for that, yes.
Yeah. I know, it's like there's going to be some really mad special team coordinators and some really happy special team coordinators and some who are like, you did half good, half terrible.
Yes, I was going to say, some of the mad and the really glad are going to be the same person.
Yeah, there's lots of film to go through.
Yeah, well, and it seemed like there was a lot of kicking in this game too. So, I mean, if you're not scoring touchdowns and you're scoring points off of kicks, that's...
Yeah, and Blanchard's really settled down.
He's gotten very good. He had a good long one on there, and it looks like he'll be fine with them. I don't know what Ottawa's going to do on their kick return team. I think they still got Harris with them. Maybe they'll put him back there with it. But if they're using Pimpleton, he's going to be a very tired young man before this goes too much further, because he looked, at the end of that game, he was putting everything he had into it, and he looked like he just... Your mother couldn't criticize him. I don't know if he was even... Yeah, I don't know if he would have even been able to walk to the locker room when he looked at the end of that game. He left everything he had out there.
That's a lot to ask from one player who's getting you those points, but...
Yeah. Now, I was
expecting more... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You jump in.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say...
I was expecting...
Do we have to do rock, paper, scissors? No, you go, MJ. I'm giving it to you.
I was just going to say I was expecting more Gino Lewis drama. And I didn't really get it. I was expecting it was like his back to Edmonton. I thought he was just going to... Well, he did his little thing, and then I was a defender on Ottawa, did his little... Oh, no, sorry, a defender on Edmonton was like... did his celebration.
No, he apparently, they said was interviewed before the game and asking them about it. And he said, if we were coming in here 4-0, I'd probably be playing that up a whole lot and having a lot of fun with it, but not where we are right now. We're here to win a football game, and they didn't quite get it. But they also, like I said, they looked out of sync to me all game, and they weren't getting the breaks that they could have. There was the one where they should have had a fumble recovery on the Edmonton 3-yard line, but the hit was called unnecessary roughness on the quarterback, and so Edmonton got the ball back and another 15 yards on top of it and managed to get out of the end zone there. It felt like Ottawa could not get out of their own way through the whole thing. And if I got anything else, one other thing.
I know I wanted to talk. Okay.
No, jump, go.
I think the echo is making it a delay, and
it'll be an interesting edit. We'll see how I make it all sound. Go ahead.
As Ticats fans, we know about Tommy Condell, and when he signed with the Red Blacks, I was like, well, have fun with Tommy Condell. And it's kind of showing I don't think he's very innovative in his play calls.
No.
He does some stuff that's different from what other people do. Like if Addison was in there, he would have used him out of the running back 3 or 4 times during the game because he seems to be convinced that gives him some sort of an advantage, which I don't really get. But no, you don't see a lot of difference in his game plans. And if they work, they're great. And if they don't, then that's there. I was starting to say there that I think it was in the 4th quarter, there was a play that to me was absolutely perfect because you saw pure skill from 2 different players in it. And it was one where Trey got some pressure on him, started running around in the backfield and did the Trey kind of magic that he does, made 3 or 4 different people miss him. Came across the corner. As soon as he hit the line of scrimmage and crossed it, Pickett closed from 10 yards out, and on Trey made a beautiful open field tackle that just stopped him dead in his tracks. So they didn't get the first down. Edmonton got a field goal out of it. But just to watch 2 players at the top of their game playing like that warms the cockles of my heart, as they say. Just that kind of talent in our league. Are we running down on all this stuff? Anything more?
I just want to talk quickly about did you see Killam and Ford together after the game? And Ford, they gave a hug, and Ford, it just has this blank, angry face.
No, I missed that.
So there was a picture. So everyone's like, maybe it's just a second. But I was watching that post game and he looked so mad. And I'm wondering if it's because maybe they put Cody in. Are they not letting him roll out as much as he wants to?
I don't know. That
Sitting
Cody
in
thing,
Commonwealth. Yeah, the Cody thing was rough.
it was bizarre. I mean, Lapalisse said at the halftime, you do that so that your backup at least gets a few reps and doesn't get too rusty. But when both times to do it, to say, I get if you're going to do it, you want to say, well, I'm doing it at this point in the game so all the quarterbacks know what's going on and nobody's confused. But like they said, with what Trey was the first one, I think he was 9 for 9 still at that point, and they absolutely dominated the full first quarter. They put Cody in for a series, and then that seemed to turn things around, and the offense got a lot more difficult for the Elks afterwards. Not enough to lose the game, but there's rookie coaches making some pretty wild decisions out there, and I think it just comes down to being rookie coaches.
It's a big difference when you're supporting a team vision versus now you are the one that has the vision. So that's maybe what Killam's bumping into, that growing pain.
Well, I'm wondering what we'll see the next time they play. They have BC at home this week. Will we see that again? Because part of it makes me wonder, they'd been struggling on offense a certain amount, maybe was in Killam and the OC there. Simic came over. I'm wondering if in their mind they were thinking, we may have to go to Cody before too much longer. So let's make sure he gets some game reps. And if they were thinking that, hopefully they will have put that out of their mind after this game. Trey certainly didn't look like he was going to set the world on fire, but he looked the best he has all season, and you're seeing what he can do when he's given a real opportunity.
Yeah, he had made 15 out of 17.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the best percentages of any quarterback this weekend.
Yeah. Well, yeah, just rough math on that. That's somewhere up around about 90%,
Yep.
high 80s. And
Yeah.
sure,
I'm just-
only 15 passes, but with the way they had the running game going.
Oh,
That's how you want both coming together.
Yeah, we
I'm just
didn't
wondering
even
if Trey
mention that.
has like flashbacks of the last few years when people like he just got jerked around by coaches.
Yeah. Could be that, yeah.
Yeesh.
Yes. But I was going to say that we didn't mention, in case anybody didn't see the game, yeah, Rankin got 2 long touchdowns for them on a screen pass and then just a beautiful run that he just, they were playing a run blitz where they had everybody but the safety up to the line, and he went through it and was gone, and nobody was going to touch him.
Nice. Yeah, he's such a dynamic player. It's nice to see him get going.
And when you look up Elks News, he's the one whose name is on all the headlines for that game.
Well, he should. And that's pretty much what the week was. Like I said, we ended up as the CFL Outsiders, went a 3-1 on Pick'em, missed the Montreal loss, but got the others right, thanks to some people who were smarter than me. But now we've got to do the week 7 predictions, and it's a short week because we've got 3 teams on bye this week. We have, who all's on there? I should be able to tell this by looking at my list there. Montreal's not on there, Toronto's not on there, and Winnipeg, yes, you're right. Oh my God. Winnipeg. So Winnipeg's had 2 byes in the first 6 weeks of the season because they were on bye the first week.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be feeling that later in the season.
Yes. That would be the what the fans were complaining about. Because again, I heard Suter on one of the first games talking about the fans were complaining about how bad they got screwed by the schedule, and they asked O'Shea about it, and his response was, "Schedule's perfect. Schedule's always perfect. Nothing to worry about." And I do like that attitude.
I do too.
It is what it is. We got to work with it. All righty. So these games coming up this week, we've got the newly resurgent Stampeders coming into Saskatchewan. And if GT had been on here tonight, I'm pretty sure that, MJ, you'd be making the deciding vote, because you can make a case for both the Stamps and the Riders coming out in this one. And I'm going to make the case for the Riders, and I'm sure he'd say that for the Stamps. So I do think that just being at home, and one of the things that really helped the Stamps on that game was they got very good play from their line, and VA didn't get a lot of pressures. Saskatchewan is a little better at that, and what I have seen about him in the past is he's magic when he gets out there and gets running around and does all the stuff that he does, sort of a little bit like what Trey does. But if he starts getting hit once or twice in that, it seems to slow him down. And I'm thinking the Saskatchewan line will get their hands on him a certain amount and may slow him down. I think it'll still be a very good game. I don't think it's going to be by more than 5 points either way, but I will pick Saskatchewan. So now the two of you get to decide if you're going Calgary or Saskatchewan, and that'll be the show picks.
Oh boy. Well, you have the defense having such a great game for the Stamps with those touchdowns, and VA. I don't know, it's hard to bet against the Stamps when they're coming out so hot, but Riders are coming off of a bye week. I could be persuaded either way. I have no idea.
Well, you'll have to. One of our rules is you have to make a choice on this.
I'm gonna.
Well, maybe I should say this might influence it a bit. Your choices are going to count for GT this week.
And that's what I thought. For GT, I will say the Stamps.
There we go. So MJ,
VA's got his belt buckle. They're coming off that Stampede Bowl high. They made Winnipeg look silly, and Winnipeg is on par with the Riders.
it is also not a home game for them.
No, I
which can
know,
make a
but
difference.
it's just. Do you think the belt buckle travels?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Is it just a team belt buckle now?
Well, he must have been the MVP, so he gets to wear it wherever he wants now. And they got a lot of swag. Yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm not belittling anyone who chooses Calgary. This is a very tough game because there's so much that's just so hard to figure out at this point. Saskatchewan has had good defense. Their offense has played well enough to win, but not spectacular either. So, yeah, and it may be something to do with the other fellow I share my brain with that I'm picking Saskatchewan. I don't know. He screams pretty loud. So,
I'm going to take Calgary. I think the vibes are vibing.
and I'm
GT
not even
can take
crushed.
the blame if they lose.
Okay. Jumping on from that, Saturday, Ottawa goes into Hamilton. And again, given the dynamics, I think I'll let you two picture first.
Hamilton.
Okay.
Hamilton.
Nothing more that needs to be said. Yeah, the games go back and forth, and it's not necessarily going to be a repeat of the other stuff, but I do have to say, Hamilton at home is a tough team, and I haven't checked the stats lately, but I thought they said last year Ottawa hasn't won in Hamilton for like 4 or 5 years. After they came off of that game, yeah, Hamilton, I think Ottawa's going to have to really fight and claw to keep themselves in a playoff spot the way that this season has gone so far. And unless, who knows, when Brown shakes the rust off, maybe he'll be throwing for 450 yards every game and they'll just outrun everybody. But I don't think this week.
They'll have to deal with Bo and Kenny.
Yes, and that's it. And if they're smart, they'll put double coverage on Kenny, because that's the one thing that I have to agree with every other commentator I've heard all weekend saying, how the hell did the Argonauts go into a game and say, oh, we're going to go man up against Lawler? Our guy can cover him.
And to not switch it up.
Yeah, exactly. And then after 3 touchdowns, yeah.
I mean, I'm fine with that decision. That's great.
It worked
Always
out really
cover
well.
man.
Was too, like I said, fantasy darlings for me. I don't know what they were smoking in the Ottawa defense, but I wouldn't have done that. Anywho, so then we go to the Sunday night game. BC goes into Edmonton. This one's a tough one. Does anyone want to go first? Okay, well, I will jump in and say I have no friggin' idea, but we got to call something, and it just feels more like Edmonton to me. I feel like BC, neither of them's going to be on a short week. BC's going to be on a slightly longer week than Edmonton, but the game is in Edmonton. BC has just done travel across the country, and like I said, I didn't see enough of that out of them to make me convinced they're going to win. So I'm going to go with the Elk.
Same here. I think if I'm looking at your numbers for offense, I really like how Trey Ford is consistent if they leave him in the game. Edmonton. Yeah.
I don't think BC is going to have this DB problem cleaned up in a week. And I don't think they have an answer for Rankin. And if Trey's playing just as well, I think it's going to be Elks.
Okay, good. So we've got Calgary, Hamilton, and the Elk for that. And yeah, I agree. That's the other thing with Edmonton is I really didn't know what they were going to do with that receiving core, because it did not look good. But they've got players stepping up and making plays.
Starting to connect.
Gittins Jr. has been doing well. Dunbar's been playing out of his mind. That one catch that I don't know if you saw when they put Cody in for one, Cody missed a throw outside by about 3 yards, and Dunbar somehow got there and caught it.
When you have players playing like that, and you've got this culture around Trey Ford, it's hard to stop that once things start to come together.
Part of what I say about BC, like I said, they're a very talented team, and they should be able to win games, but they just don't seem to have the attitude. I can't remember the last time I saw a BC player diving to try and make a catch, or sprinting after someone who was getting away from them. It seems like they're willing to put in enough effort to do what they think they need to do, but that it's not important enough for them to. That's a mindset. It's the kind of thing you have to do on a split second. You can't decide a second later, oh, I should have jumped for that.
There is a Tie-Cat receiver one time who, when Danny McManus threw him a pass and he missed it, this one, and he just pointed at the ground. He's like, the ball was supposed to go here.
Yeah.
And that's how
Talk
I feel
about
like BC is
dysfunction.
playing.
Yes, exactly. And I got to say, that's something that I've complained about that from quarterbacks before. And there was a good example of Bo not doing it on the night. And what I complain about is those ones where a quarterback will miss a receiver by a fairly wide margin. And of course, we don't know, did the quarterback miss or did the receiver run his route wrong? And there are quarterbacks that will, as they're coming off the field, will be motioning to the guy and waving and going, no, you should have gone deeper. I needed you out there. And I've always said, you don't call out a teammate in public like that. You go to the sidelines and have that discussion. And then it's good. Because otherwise, all you're really doing is saying, oh, see, it wasn't my fault. It was him. He did wrong. And I hate that. And then I noticed in the Hamilton game on, where were we again? Then that was Friday night. There was one with Bo talking to people like that, but only because they put the field mic on him as he was coming off. And it was just after they'd taken a time count penalty. And they're running off, and the receivers are all around him. And he's saying to them, look, on that, you need to be clustered in, get in it tighter, get away from the huddle tighter. We got to get in and out of it. So he was giving good coaching advice. But it was private. It wasn't being put out to and he was one of the ones that in his younger days was the worst for calling out receivers. So again, another sign of maturity. That's why I've become a believer these last few years.
You get to get some overalls.
Believer.
I wore Boveralls. Well, they didn't call them Boveralls at the time, but I wore Boveralls almost all through high school. I just liked the look. All righty. So that's all our attention. This has been so much fun. And thank you both for being here, and thank you MJ too for being here on such short notice again. And
thanks for having me.
Bench. This has been a really good one. So, alrighty, anything else that you all want to talk about, or are we going to sign off? And okay, so MJ, thank you. It's going to be fun, but I think this will be a good one. So MJ too. Last week you gave MJ's contacts. Are we still doing that this week?
Yeah, if you want to get in touch with me, I know where she lives. So she'll pass along the message.
Okay. And thank you again. Now, MJ, your social medias and shot back.
As a reminder, I only accept compliments about the Tiger Cats in my DMs. You can find me at Sports and Plants. Happy to talk football anytime.
Good. All righty. And I'm, of course, at oldman-SAC on Blue Sky. We're on X as the CFL Outsiders. Don't do a lot there, but you can hit us up if you want to. And we got the old-fashioned email if anybody wants to do it. Oldman, all one word, dot, shouting at clouds, all one word, at shaw.ca. And all that will be in the show notes and stuff if you didn't get them down here. Thank you for joining us. I hope we've entertained and educated you a little bit. And so for MJ and MJ2, this is Old Man until next week saying, get the hell off my lawn.